that. And I'm gonna do this.
Maybe I should call this person. Well, they didn't leave a voicemail. Okay. Oh, Caitlin, real quick. What came out of your conversation with Greg in terms of Celine? Because she called again. I just talked to her and I told her.
Oh, we can't. We won't be able to do that. Celine needs to be at the one in Philly.
Okay. You see Lola?
No, I can only see Caitlin's sweater right now.
Oh, you can't see Lola.
Maybe I'm doing it wrong.
No, it's me.
Oh, there you are. Now I can see you too.
Okay.
Oh, hi Lola. She matches your shirt.
Just so you guys know, there's probably people in here.
Okay. Yep. Hi everybody.
Hi.
I'm just getting the Facebook Live going, and it was like too hard to go like this with the keyboard.
Hey Megan.
Thanks, Randy.
All right, we'll start. I think Facebook Live is going. Oh, you know, shoot. Shoot. Okay. Hold on, Caitlin. You forgot what you were doing. It's all right, though. Okay. Real quick. There's still a few minutes to spare. Forgot, I was like, I don't need my phone for anything, so it doesn't matter that it's not charged, but that's not true because I can't see Facebook Live comments unless I tune into But I am just about to be there. Yep, there we are. Nice. Okay. All right, we'll start. Oops, let's turn that down.
Eddie asking to be let in.
What?
My cat's at the door and she's sad that she's.
Okay, I was like, is somebody asking to be let in? No, everybody
No.
should come in.
Just my cat.
All right, and then we're going.
Hi, Judith. Right, yeah, we cannot see or hear you.
Okay, this is what we want. And it looks like all right, and then I can't see anywhere what exact time it is. So when it is, maybe we'll wait till like 5 after?
It's 5:29 now.
Okay. I'm gonna check out the chat here. Can you guys see the chat?
Yeah.
I can't because I think of the screen share, although.
Oh, hi, Linda. There should be an option at the top of the thumbnail photo of me where you can see gallery view, so you can see all three of us.
Here, I'll actually change that so that I think that will help. All right, there's the chat. Now I'm going to share again. There we go. Ah, won't let me see the chat. Okay, that's not ideal. So let me at least. Okay, so that means actually, if one or both of you guys could just handle that part, then that would be good and we'll be fine. I don't want to mess around with it much more to figure out why that's happening.
Sure.
Here we go. Okay.
Hi, folks.
Right, I'll handle the Facebook questions for Q&A.
Okay.
Hey, Tony, I think you might be the only one here, but.
No, I think I see 39 participants.
Oh, no, sorry. I was talking to Facebook.
Oh, okay. Hi, Facebook. How many are viewing this webinar? Right now, there are 38 participants, but we're expecting more than that. So we're going to.
We had about 200 people registered, although it's pretty normal that folks are registering partly because the time might not work, and then they want to tune in later, and so we might offer it again next week. We talked about doing that.
We can see you. Welcome.
All right. What time you got?
5:31.
5:31. I'm fast. Oh yeah, and there's definitely still people joining. So yeah, let's wait. Now we're at 47.
I should also say that there's a possibility that close to 7, a toddler is going to come barreling in my room. So just heads up. It might end up
I hope so.
for me.
It'll be like that. I think I saw something where there was like a juxtaposition of two different parents who like worked at home, and that happened. And like the mom, she was like they were both doing like media interviews. The one who was a mom, one was a mom and one was a dad from like different. The mom like just picked up her kid and just like went with it. The dad was like, and then the mom came running in and was like, sorry. And, like, shuffled the door. Although it was like more than one child, and they were like in a bustle. We'll start in just a minute, folks.
Randy says, did you know California Forward also wants to have constitutional convention to amend the Constitution?
There are several groups who are working on the constitutional convention route strategy. Good. I feel like in the past I've been able to see the comments while my screen was sharing, but it's not working today. So I'm glad you guys are here for that.
So Morgan asks, these other groups want to create the same amendment or have a different focus? I don't think there's any group that's calling for a convention that wants our language. There are some that are doing more money in politics. That isn't still murky and unclear what they're actually asking for. They're just kind of getting the foundation laid. And then there are some, balanced budget and that kind of stuff.
Oh, Michael, glad you're looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
Hey, Michael.
Should we start?
Yeah, let's get going.
Sure.
I think we're at about 5 after.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Caitlin Savosi-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. And we're also on Facebook Live. And if you're tuning in on Facebook Live, it would be great if you would share this link to bring more people over here. And you can type questions in the comments on Facebook Live, and I'll see them. And you can type questions in the chat field, and Jessica and Shelly will see them. And so do you guys want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get going?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jessica Munger. I'm Move to Amend's Program Director, and I'm here in Los Angeles today.
I'm Shelly Williams. I'm the Administrative Coordinator based out of Sacramento with Caitlin.
Shelly, for me, you're a little bit quieter than Jessica, so maybe speak up or something like that, just to make sure everyone can hear.
Okay, maybe I'll just go get my earbuds.
Okay. All right. So we can't really do tech support in real time, so if you're having difficulties, I apologize. And if they, maybe hang with it, or try coming out and coming back in. If that doesn't work, do know that this webinar is being recorded, and so the recording will be available. So if you're missing anything, don't worry too much. And then also, we did have a little bit of a snafu this afternoon with our Zoom system. And so all of you who were registered before today, we actually lost your registration information out of Zoom. And so normally we would email everybody the recording and follow up as well. We will send you to a link where you can sign up to let us know that you want to do action, but just want to flag that we've lost our sign up list. So we're working with Zoom to see if we can get it back, but just in case we can't, please do make sure that you fill out that form that we send you to, because otherwise we won't know who you are to give you updates and things like that. And we also will send some stuff to the national list too that you can keep an eye for, but you can help us out by filling it out. So today we're gonna do just a little bit of a quick intro to Move to Amend, because there's several folks who are new. And then we're gonna talk about mostly the May 28th action plan and materials and support that we will be providing as national. And then we'll have an opportunity for Q&A about the actions. And if there's time, we also could take some general questions about Move to Amend as well. And then we'll let you know what happened, how to get started. Wanted to first just check in. Those of you who are on Facebook won't be able to see this, but wanted to do a quick survey here to just find out kind of who's in the room, so to speak, what your involvement with Move to Amend has been to date. If you could answer on the screen, and then for those of you on Facebook, the question is, what has been your involvement with Move to Amend to date? And the options are none, I'm brand new, I sign the petition and get the emails, I sign the petition and get the emails, and I sometimes take online action, I am a Move to Amend affiliate volunteer, I am a Move to Amend affiliate leader, or I am with National Move to Amend. So if you want to put in the comments what your answer is, as there's 5 of you on Facebook Live, and that way you can participate too. We'll give you maybe another 10 seconds to get your answers in, because I'm seeing the numbers changing still. And 72% of you have voted. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and do that. If you're a Move to Amend staff person, you can answer the Move to Amend national question if you want, if that's what you're holding back for. And we'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll end the poll. And so it looks like there's a couple people who are brand new. There's a handful of folks who sign the petition and get the emails. The majority of people who answered sign the petition, get the emails, and sometimes take online action. And we have a few people who are Move to Amend affiliate volunteers. I'm saying all this for the Facebook Live people. And we have a handful of folks who are affiliate leaders, and then several folks from National are tuning in as well. And then on Facebook, we've got one person who signed the petition, gets the emails, and another affiliate leader. And I know I see another affiliate leader there too. And so that's who's answered. So great. Thanks. So we do have a mix of folks, so that's part of why we're gonna do a little bit of an intro here right now. So let me move us on. All right, so our mission at Move to Amend We are a coalition of hundreds of organizations and hundreds of thousands of individuals that are committed to social and economic justice, ending corporate rule, and building a vibrant democracy that's genuinely accountable to the people, not corporate interests. And sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a lag with my screen. Our goals are, I think as everybody knows, to pass the We the People amendment. And that amendment makes clear that artificial entities don't have constitutional rights and that money is not speech, and that all disclosure or all campaign contributions need to be disclosed. And then our other goal is to provoke discussion and organizing about how to make real the promise of democracy through constitutional renewal. So we see our amendment as an entry point, a first step to constitutional change that is needed to make our country more democratic than it ever was, and certainly never met its promise that we have had in terms of our ideals. So Move to Amend, we think it's really important to share our principles and values. Most organizations have them, but are not always transparent about them. And by sharing them, that gives you an opportunity to give us feedback about them and also understand who you're working with. So our first principle is a commitment to anti-oppression and solidarity organizing. And we see this as essential because in terms of what I was talking about before, this country really has never been a functioning democracy or a functioning democratic republic. It hasn't worked for most people. In fact, the story of our country is the story of all of us who were left out of the original interpretation of the Constitution and of we the people having to drive ourselves in. And so that's the context for where we are now. So it's not an accident that we've ended up in this situation where property, which is what corporations are, basically have more rights than people. We're a country that was founded on enslaving human beings as property and also stealing the property of the people who are here and genocide. And so, and we've never reckoned with that. So that's our outgrowth. And so that's part of what is happening and going on every single day in all aspects of our lives. And that relates to our organizing and our work for democracy too. We also believe very strongly in coalition and movement building. The only way that the Constitution has ever been amended before is through building a people's movement. So that's what we're seeking to do. We are certainly not the only ones working on a democracy movement in this country, and we see Move to Amend in that river along with a number of other organizations and community groups and individuals. And so coalition and movement building is key. The other piece is that grassroots organizing is essential. So we are a national organization, but we are not based in Washington, D.C. All three of us happen to live in California, but we have our staff and national team members all over the country. And then we have local folks all over the country through what we call our affiliates who are really doing the work on the ground in communities. And all of us who founded Move to Amend, our background is in community organizing. And so we still have that principle and commitment, even though, at this point we're working at the national level. We have a dedication to political education because we need to understand how we got into this situation in order to figure out how to dismantle it and solve our problems. And that's an ongoing commitment. There's no way that we would ever say, we know everything and we've learned all there is to learn. We have that ongoing commitment to political education that we hold ourselves to in the leadership of Move to Amend. And then we also have an expectation that our leaders at the grassroots level also have a dedication to political education and an ongoing understanding of the systems that we're operating in and the context for how we got here. And then the last piece is a commitment to political and economic independence as Move to Amend. So Move to Amend is not aligned with any political party. Move to Amend is not beholden to any particular funder. We are grassroots funded. The average donation is $40 and we have thousands of donors. And we want to keep it that way so that we can maintain our independence in both of those spheres. And we can be, cross-partisan. And we also make sure that, none of our funders have too much sway to be able to try and steer where we go or what we do or the tactics that we use. So just real quick about our structure, we have a national board. That's what we call our national leadership team, and then national staff. So the three of us are on the national staff. And then we have local affiliates. Those are our grassroots, basically our chapters. There's a number of folks who are on this call who are part of chapters. Most of you, though, are not. One of the things that we're hoping is potentially through doing these actions, if you want to keep working with Move to Amend, then looking at the group that you put together to organize these actions in May, potentially coming on and joining us as affiliates. And we can talk about that later, and there's no need to commit to that now, but just want to be transparent and clear that that's our, our deep hope for being able to have this be the beginning of an ongoing working relationship. And we also have amendment working groups, which are sort of less organized than affiliates. Maybe they go through periods of, kind of working on stuff and then maybe not as much, or just, maybe don't have enough capacity to be an affiliate. So that is also another starting point for continuing the relationship after these actions are done. And then we also have a number of coalition partners and independent supporters. So coalition partners are organizations, and then independent supporters are, some key individuals out there in the political world. So to kind of set us up for why we're doing these actions in May, want to make sure that, from our perspective, the We the People Amendment is essential for all other issues. Not that it's more important than other issues, but it is key for other issues to be successful. And what I mean by that is that corporations have hijacked our Constitution and are working with the judiciary, not just the Supreme Court, but at lower level courts, and they're able to use our Constitution against us. So when local communities or state governments, or in the case of Citizens United and other examples, the federal government even, passes legislation or regulation meant to curb corporate excess or protect a community from harm that a corporation is causing, if a corporation has enough money and can make the argument that that legislation or that regulation violates their constitutional rights, then they're able to get that law overturned through the court system. So basically throwing up our Constitution against us and saying, nope, you can't regulate us or limit what we do in that way. And so we've seen that around communities trying to ban fracking, or working on labeling of GMOs, or trying to keep particular chemicals out of their food supply, or other areas of our lives. So environmental is big, but also worker protections, campaigns to try and pass, living wages have had corporations claim constitutional rights against that. And so basically anywhere we turn, anything we try to do, even if we do get something passed, it's vulnerable to getting overturned because courts have interpreted corporations to have constitutional rights. Corporations don't have constitutional rights in the Constitution as it's written, but that's an interpretation from the courts. So going forward too, the Green New Deal or Medicare for All or HR 1, these democracy reforms that just passed through the House, or environmental policies or consumer protection or worker rights, all of these things require us to address corporate constitutional rights to get corporations out of the Constitution, so that this legislation or other things that we think of are safe and cannot be either entirely taken away or gutted after they pass. So we are in a constitutional or / democracy crisis. This is not just about money and politics. Yes, Move to Amend launched with Citizens United, and so that's obviously one of the key pieces. And things have gotten worse than Citizens United, but we don't see this as a money and politics problem. That's a symptom of the problem. And so if we just try to address that, we're not going to be that much better off than where we are now. So we see 2019 and 2020 as critical for the fight to save our planet. And without democratic governance, we can't win this fight. And so our amendment is essential. It's an essential ingredient to the proposals that are being put forward right now for, 2020 is a big election year, and that's kind of when Americans think about politics. And in some ways it's ridiculous that we're starting so early on the presidential campaigns, but on the other hand, it means we have this whole year to talk about politics, and it's, a lot of that is going on already. And we need to make sure that folks understand how critical and essential this amendment is. many members of Congress don't yet understand the depth of the problem. They think that overturning Citizens United will solve our issues, and we don't believe that that is true. We don't know, we can't count on having more than one opportunity to amend the Constitution. So we need to put forward the most powerful, comprehensive, strong amendment that there is. We believe and feel very clear that that is the We the People amendment. And so we need to make sure that everybody in Congress, the presidential candidates, et cetera, going into their election year next year, understand how important this is and are championing it, or are letting the voters know that they don't support it so that we can vote accordingly. To that end, we're kind of starting our escalation process on May 28th. May is the month that the Santa Clara decision, which goes all the way back, over 130 years to when corporations first were interpreted to have rights under the Constitution by the Supreme Court. So that case happened in May 1886. So we've, and for a number of other reasons, but chosen May. And then we picked the 28th because Congress will be back in district, so you won't have to travel to DC to have a meeting with them. And also, we want to draw attention to that history and also, again, make clear that it's not just about Citizens United. So May 28th is the National Day of Action to Free the People from Corporate Rule. And kind of the story that we're trying to get across, all of us who are doing this, is that it's time for Congress to choose a side. The options are people and the planet versus billionaires and their corporations. So pick a side, Congress, and then, it'll be our job to promote and make clear which side they've chosen once they do. Grassroots demonstrations, so the actions are grassroots demonstrations targeting Congress members all over the country as a show of power and as a demand that our representatives take action against corporate rule. And the action that they need to take is they need to co-sponsor the We the People Amendment, which was reintroduced last month. And so it's an easy action for them to take, in terms of the process. And so everyone is just clear. We see this as the first step. I mean, really, it's not the first step at all. Our amendment was reintroduced last year. It's been in Congress 4 different times. We've grown the number of co-sponsors every time. So in a way, this is just a natural next step. But in terms of talking about 2019, this is sort of the big first public thing that Move to Amend will be doing. So we're putting Congress on notice. And we may get some co-sponsors right out of that first time. But then we will have an opportunity to kind of follow back up and give them multiple opportunities. And then, kind of time will be up when we get to the end of the year and they still haven't supported. So May 28th is the first, shot. Then June 24th, we have a lobby day in Washington, D.C. as part of our National Leadership Summit, and registration is open now for that. Everyone is invited and welcome to attend. Early bird registration ends on the 22nd, so Friday. So you can register for a little bit of a discount if you do it before then. After this webinar, I hope you'll go to movetoamend.org/summit to learn about the Leadership Summit. And on the final day of that conference is a lobby day in Congress. So we're going to be in district on the 28th of May and then in DC on the 24th to kind of follow up. And then during the August recess, when they're back in district, that'll be another round of meetings, actions. And then by September and October, if they haven't yet come on, then we're looking at escalated action. So the details of that are not clear yet, but that's the intention. By signing up to do a May 28th action, that doesn't mean you have to do all of these other steps as well, but we hope you will, because we need to do this until the amendment passes, right? And so if your Congress member does not come on as a co-sponsor after May 28th, these are the other opportunities to kind of keep on them and ratchet up the pressure as we go forward with those dates. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to kind of spell out what we're going to do on the 28th.
Thanks, Caitlin. Okay, so a little more specifically about what it's going to mean to put Congress on notice. We're looking at a series of demonstrations outside of the offices of your federal House representatives. So this is an opportunity to invite other organizations in your community to come out and speak a little bit about the ways that corporate power and money in politics impacts the issues that they're working on. Because as we all know, corporate power relates to almost every issue that we care about. It's also a good opportunity to apply community pressure to these representatives. So to make a show of power and to show that we're actually a large coalition, not just a small group of activists, but that the whole community is invested in this. And it's an opportunity to hold a meeting with your representative. So we'll talk more about this later, but we're hoping that there's going to be demonstrations outside of the office, and then folks will go in and have a meeting actually with the representative or maybe a staffer, and come out and report back to the folks at the demonstration about what was said and if there were any commitments made. It's also an opportunity to just get people excited and build some momentum about the big picture. And the big picture being that this is not just a one-off action, but actually these are happening all over the country, and that, we're turning out in districts all over the place. So planning your actions specifically. How do we go about doing this? That's okay. Caitlin's on slides, so give us one sec here.
Sorry, it's being slow and I don't know why. It was working fine when, there we go.
There we go. Okay, so the first step is to set up a meeting with your representative. This is where you're going to start as you're thinking about planning these actions. So your congresspeople, as Caitlin said, will be in district on May 28th. So hopefully you can get a meeting with them ahead of time if you call and set something up. We will have some materials to help you go about that if you're not sure what to say or who to talk to. And ideally, you'll meet with the representative themselves, but if you can get a meeting with a staffer, that'll do too. And they report back to the representative about the meetings they have with constituents. And you're going to let them know that you're representing a wide coalition. So not only the community organizations that you're working with on this demonstration, but also the entire Move to Amend coalition, which is made of hundreds of organizations and hundreds of thousands of individuals who are calling for them to take this action. And some of you might live in a district where your representative is already a co-sponsor. So in that case, you're going to treat this a little differently. So instead of asking them to co-sponsor HJR 28, which is the We the People Amendment, you're going to ask them to come and speak at the rally instead and let folks know why that's important to them, why they signed on, and thank them, and then create a little bit of attention around their support, make them feel good about the decision to co-sponsor the amendment. The next you want to do as you're planning for the action is to get to know your representative. We want to know who we're talking to so that we have a little bit more leverage in asking them to take action. So for these actions in May, we're going to be targeting the House of Representatives because that's where our bill currently is. And we'll talk about the Senate at another point, but right now we're going to focus on the House. So things that would to know as you go into this. Have they taken the Pledge to Amend? And if you don't know what Pledge to Amend is, it's a campaign that we run to ask electeds and candidates to state their intentions to support HJR 48 and how they can use their office to further the movement to amend. And you can learn more about that on our website if you have questions. So we also want to know, have they co-sponsored HJR 48 in the past? So we've had the amendment in Congress. This is our third introduction, a fourth, thank you. So we want to know if that's something they've done in the past and we're just asking them to get back on board, or if they have no history of sponsoring us. We also want to know who they take money from. Are they, they have lobbyists in their pocket who is, who's paying the bills around there. If they're taking corporate money, that's good stuff to know. And what kind of legislation do they usually support? Are they, in favor of the Green New Deal or Medicare for All? What does their legislative history look like? And then we're going to consider the tone of these actions. So what I mean by tone is when we're approaching them, there's a lot of different attitudes we might take in constructing these actions. So is your representative an active ally? Again, if they've already co-sponsored the bill, we want to be celebratory and thank them and be hopeful that more people will follow their lead. And if there's a chance that they might co-sponsor, but they haven't yet, we want to approach them with with information and try to fill in any gaps that might be there that could help convince them that they should take action and co-sponsor. So we want to be encouraging and display to them the urgency of taking action on this as we move further and further into extreme climate change and all of these other moments that require that we take seriously addressing corporate power. And then, if your representative is working against you, some of you might live in districts where they're hostile even to our efforts. This might be a moment to be a little bit more aggressive or confrontational and let them know that, their constituents and a lot of people around the country really care about this, and that it's a little bit risky for them to speak out against it because that's not going to go well for them with the public opinion. So just to underline those points, this is called the Spectrum of Allies. It's a very helpful tool, and we could do a whole webinar on this itself, which we might sometime. But what I'm talking about here with the different tones that we take is going to depend on where your representative falls on this spectrum. So we'll consider that people who have co-sponsored the amendment already are active supporters. So they're already doing something to help us out. We might consider passive supporters to be people who have taken the pledge to amend or maybe spoken out against corporate power or money in politics, but they haven't yet been proactive in co-sponsoring and being a champion of the amendment. And then there's going to be a lot of people who are sort of neutral, and that could mean that they just don't have the information they need to have a position, or they might need a little bit of debate to nudge them on this. And then you've got people in the passive opposition and active opposition. So that's when we're talking about people who are coming out against these types of actions and the amendment and think that it's a bad idea. Maybe they're, corporate capitalists themselves. So those are people that realistically, they're never going to become active supporters. So what we need to do is isolate them and make them understand that coming out against this amendment and against movements to end corporate power, it is going to not look good for them, and it's going to be a fringe opinion. So this is kind of just a tool to help you analyze what tone to take depending on where they fall on the spectrum.
Can I just add one thing, Jessica? On those opposition ones as well. So it might be that right now your House member is somebody who is in opposition. So if possible, we're trying to move them to neutral so they're at least not getting in our way. But the other option is maybe they stay in opposition. And then as we go forward and going into an election year next year where every House member is up for election, that potentially is something that we can make hay of, because we know that 80% of Americans support this issue regardless of what party they're in or where they live in the country, et cetera, et cetera. And so turning this into something that could potentially be damaging to somebody and make room for another candidate to come forward who is more supportive is where we would need to go with those opposing folks. So, we're never going to get somebody like Mitch McConnell to become a supporter of this amendment. And that's not our goal. Our goal is to move somebody like that to where they're kind of maybe being quiet about it, or to help provide the seeds for somebody else to come and challenge them who's offering something that their constituents actually want, as opposed to the person who's in there right now.
Totally. So if we can move everyone one notch to the left, that's great. So tactics and capacity for the actual demonstrations themselves. So there's a little bit of room here for you to analyze how much time and energy you have for this. Most groups will hold a demonstration with, like I said, community speakers and have a meeting with their representative to ask or demand that they co-sponsor the amendment. So that's going to look like sort of a rally demonstration outside on the sidewalk, outside of their office. Some groups might want to get a little bit more creative if you've got the interest and capacity to take on other tactics that are a little bit more of a spectacle. So we have some ideas like street theater. We have a play that we will post to the webpage that you can perform outside on the sidewalk if you'd like to do that sort of thing. There's some visuals or props that you might think of that would be good to have there at the event to draw people in and kind of demonstrate physically what you're talking about. We have a program called We the People Listen, which is just a listening campaign where you're sort of talking to folks about how they feel about corporate power and how it impacts their life. You might do something like dropping off a bunch of postcards or something that's a little bit more visual if you feel like doing that. And then be realistic about your capacity. So I should also say that we as National are going to be doing these actions as well. We've got a series of those planned that we're also going to be participating right alongside you. So we can't offer a ton of support for this. What we want to do is give you the resources that we can and help empower you to go forward. The theme being free the people. So all of the actions that we're going to do, no matter what tactics you take, are going to be along the theme of freeing the people from corporate rule. So again, if your representative is already a co-sponsor, your tactics are going to look a little different. So again, asking them to speak at your event. Why did they choose to co-sponsor? How did they get convinced to co-sponsor? What's their interest in this? And then asking them to call their colleagues and encourage them to do the same. So they can send a letter of support. Why did they do this? Encourage folks in the House who might also take that step. And then delivering thank you cards is always nice. They like to be praised when they do things that we like, so we'll pat them on the back. And maybe ask them to write an op-ed for a publication, maybe the biggest statewide publication you can think of, to get it out there and let them know that, that they took this step on behalf of their constituents. Or you could do something like a freeway overpass display, which we have instructions for on the website as well, like public messaging about how they've co-sponsored and that we thank them for that action. Okay, so as you're setting all this stuff up and considering the nuts and bolts of the action, of course, press is a big part of that. So you want to send a press release to local media sources about a week before your action is going to take place. So we have a template that we'll provide, and we'll talk more about exactly what resources we have to lend to this at the end. But we've got a press release that you can adjust for your specific details and get out there. And then, of course, you want to follow up again on that to make sure that they got it and that they know that you're, hoping that they will be there. You want to have some talking points for the day of the action. So if press does show up, you want to have some things to tell them why you're doing this, what you're doing, and what you hope will come of these actions. And then, of course, so much of what we do in organizing is in the follow-up. So after the action, you want to send out a press release to let them know what happened, and including an event report, what was said in the meeting that you had with your representative, and some photos of the day and all of the cool stuff that you did. So in terms of inviting community groups to participate and endorse, there's a couple ways that folks can get involved. And we all know that, corporate power is related to almost every issue that we care about. So we would like to show and speak at these demonstrations to let them know that, there's wide investment in ending corporate constitutional rights, and that it's going to matter for a whole lot of different reasons. And if we can give them a platform, these other groups, to speak about their work and how their work is impacted by corporate power, draw those connections for the press and for others and for the representative, how their work would be helped by the amendment passing and how we would all be much better off with that in place. And then another piece is to ask them to sign a resolution endorsing the action for you to present at your meeting. So when you go in and talk to the representative or staffer, you're bringing with you, something saying all of these community groups within your district are here and watching and asking you to do this as well. So even if there's groups who can't commit to showing up and speaking at your event, the minimum ask is for them to endorse it and sign off on the action that they are supporting it. So some of the groups that you might consider approaching that have very direct connections to corporate power include environmental groups, climate change, Medicare for all, any sort of democracy reform or money in politics, of course, We also have groups like interfaith groups, clergy members, labor unions, anything like that who, we have a wide range of reasons and why these issues are connected to corporate power, and we can help you make these connections too if you need. But these are some ideas that we had. I'm sure you have many more, and you know who's in your community and who is invested in this type of thing. Okay, so then there's promotion for folks to show up themselves outside of the press. So we have created a template flyer that you can add the details of the event to and post around town. We have handout information. So there's a bunch of events that are going to be happening between now and then. For instance, like a May Day parade or March, lots of farmers markets. Coming into the spring, it's sort of action season. So there's lots of stuff, lots of opportunities to let people know that you're going to be holding this action and invite them. We have capacity to help you send an email blast. So whether you're a Move to Amend affiliate or outside of an affiliate, we can help you get the word out to all of the Move to Amend supporters in your area. And then you want to send, of course, invite your personal network and your friends to come out and support. And of course, social media. So social media is going to be a big part of this campaign. Remember a couple of weeks ago when the Sunrise Movement folks went and spoke to Dianne Feinstein and confronted her about her lack of support for the Green New Deal? That action was so powerful, not just because they showed up and talked to her, but because they captured this moment and had it on social media and it went viral. And so we really want to encourage you to sort of think about it from that perspective. And a lot of the way that actions are done these days is a little bit of smoke and mirrors, right? So we're using social media and the fact that there are actions happening all over the country to make this even bigger than it is. So this is a series, and it's not just what's happening on the ground, but also what's happening on social media. So there's a couple of hashtags there that you can use when you promote this stuff. You want to do it live as it's happening and also before and after to make sure you really make use of that. Okay, so then you want to scope out the location. It's really good anytime you're going to plan an action to make sure that you feel familiar with the space that you're going to be at. So go by the office. Probably most of you have been there anyway because you're that type of folks. But go by the office and get a feel for where you're going to host the action. Where will you set up? Is there room for you to, set up what you want to have there, props and whatnot? Where will people stand and how will the physical layout be of the day? Is there parking nearby? Is there anything that participants should know ahead of time to feel prepared and comfortable occupying that space? Then you're going to get your materials ready. So we will, if you don't already know, we have an extensive database of petition signers that we can, if you let us know with good advance, we can print that out for you so you can bring that to your meeting and let them know, there are X number of people in your district who we're here on behalf of. And that can be a very powerful tool. So get that ready, give us plenty of time to get that ready for you. Print the petition so that you can ask people who show up to sign the petition if they haven't already. And collect any other literature that you want to distribute. So maybe you want to have, we have brochures and stickers and all kinds of stuff on the website if you want to have that sort of thing there, or maybe your specific group has a localized information that you want to have, or maybe there are other groups who want to have their literature there. Make sure you've got the stuff you need. Maybe you need a microphone or a speaker, depending on how your action is going to look. Maybe you want to play music. So just considering all of these things. And if you are going to take a more creative approach and you want to have any props or costumes for street theater or something, make sure that that's all ready with plenty of time. And then we ready the team. So making sure that everyone knows their roles and understands the timeline of the day is super important. That way you're not running around frantically the day of feeling nervous, but that you can go into these actions feeling really confident and hold the space in a way that, that these are the people who work for you. So you wanna go in feeling confident, knowing that you have the right to be there and that you're there to ask that they take action on behalf of everyone. So considering some of the roles that you might assign for folks the day of, you definitely want to have someone who can speak to the media and is designated to do that, so that you're not running around pointing out different people, trying to figure out who's going to say what. So someone whose job the day of is to give the talking points and speak with the media. You definitely want to have several people who can capture videos and photos. Again, we're going to do a lot on social media, and a lot of this is in the follow-up. So any little sound bites or clips that you can get are really good for creating videos and posting about it later on. Maybe you want to have someone who's live tweeting the event. So their job is to be there on Twitter, letting people know who can't be there, what's going on, what the representative said, and how it's going. Who is coordinating with the speakers from the community organizations, someone who's in charge of letting them know when and where to be and making sure that they feel comfortable in their role. And then who's going in for the meeting. So when you set up the meeting, they may ask you how many people you're bringing with you. We think, 3 to 5 people is usually what we bring with us when we do these meetings, to go in and talk with the representative. And you should feel empowered in doing that. Even if you don't feel like an expert on HJR 48, you are a constituent and you are entitled to go in there and tell them what you think. And if they have questions for you that you can't answer, that's okay. You can say that you'll follow up and give them the information. Don't be afraid to take ownership over this meeting, and make sure you've got a good team with you to go in and hold the space with you. So I'll turn it over to Shelley to talk about kind of how you want to pace these actions and the recipe for success in making this work out for you time-wise.
All right, so I just want to start by saying there's a little bit of confusion in the chat. I didn't realize that they can only see me, but they can't see each other. So I was answering questions and people were getting confused about the context. So Q&A is a good time to ask a lot of these questions. So at this point, I think deferring to there would be best. So just a timeline. So from now until the end of the month, the things that would be good to get started on would be requesting and hopefully nailing down your meeting with your rep. And then doing research on your rep. So that's going to, figuring out if they're a co-sponsor, if they're not, figuring out their history, their voting history, and kind of getting an idea of where they are on that spectrum of allies. And then starting your discussion with your group on your capacity and what tactics you'll use. So, the basic action that we're laying out for you and giving the resources for is actually pretty simple and pretty easy to pull off with a small group of people. And then promoting is going to get more people out, but a small core group of people could pull this off pretty well. And then if you have more capacity and you wanted to add some creative elements to it and have a little bit more fun with it, but be realistic. It doesn't need to be, something over the top. The most important thing is that it is successful. So just be keeping your capacity in mind. And then start looking in your community. You may already have good connections, and that's great. If you don't, we've given you some, ideas and examples of types of groups, and some of those are, grassroots, affiliate-based, and so finding out if there's a chapter in your area, but figuring out who are you going to reach out to. And then in the first half of April, you want to really kind of get clear with an outline of what your action is going to be. So if it is just going to be, having a rally with some speakers and then having your meeting, kind of outlining what that's going to be. And then if you're adding more into it, just having a plan to take you forward. And then this is a good time to also assign your action roles if you have, enough people to do that, and everybody can kind of divvy up whether they're doing social media or press releases, and who is going to be the delegation that goes into the meeting. One thing to keep in mind is not everyone is going to be, who shows up might not be a constituent. You want to make sure that there are constituents in that group, and it's okay if there's somebody who's better versed and can talk better, maybe is a constituent of a neighboring area, that's fine too. We kind of do that a lot around here, but definitely constituent power is very real. So, and then sending your invitations to the community partners, because there probably will be follow-up. You might not hear back, so this is a good time to send those out and get that out there. And then if your meeting gets scheduled, once it's scheduled, since we're probably going to have a big list of a lot of petition signer lists to get out. So getting those requests in as early as possible is awesome. Of course, you're going to get a lot of contact information and next step stuff at the end, but that is a good point to do that. And basically what that is, we use these a lot when we're lobbying. We, look in that district, we print out a pretty PDF list of everyone who signed the petition in your area. In some cases, it's a very fat stack of paper. We're not a big fan of wasting paper, but in this case, it is a good use because, especially if it's a big list, kind of slapping that heavy stack of papers down can be pretty powerful. And I think it has made the difference a lot of times in getting people to co-sponsor and listen to us. So the second half of April, that would be a good time if you've reached out to folks and maybe they haven't responded back yet to follow up, but making sure that you're kind of clear on who is going to be there, and if there's somebody you really want to follow up with and try to coax them in, then following up at that point. This would be a good time to visit the location. So it's going to look different, depending on where you are, but it's a good idea to get an idea of how much space there is, the sidewalk situation, and just kind of knowing what you're getting into and envisioning how you're going to set up your action. And then having your promotion plan ready. So flyering, sorry, I can't read my whole slide here. Oh, email blasts, which is something that we can help you with if you aren't already an affiliate and you don't know how to do that, and you're kind of on your own. Somebody asked about this earlier. We can help get the word out for you, and that's something that we're offering to do. So basically sending an email blast to everyone in that district saying, hey, we're going to do this action. You're a supporter and we'd love for you to come join us. And then in the first half of May, gathering your materials. In some cases, people might want swag, like our brochures or strategic plans or buttons or stickers. So getting your orders in, because we'll probably be pretty busy with those around that time. Finalizing the design of your action, the timeline and the outline of that and what it's going to look like. And then keep promoting in your social media, email blasts, your network, and just getting the word out. And the second half of May, so that's leading right up to the event. So that's when you're going to be doing your series of press releases, which we do have a template, so it's very easy. That'll be available to you, and just getting those out. So in the days leading up to it and the day of. Checking in with your partners and guest speakers. It's a good idea to kind of get clear on like what their issues are, and figuring out that nexus with ours. And one thing to keep in mind is we really want this to be an opportunity to build coalition and solidarity. So it doesn't need to be all about us, and letting them talk about their issues and making sure that we make that connection point clear, but giving them an opportunity to, talk to a group about what's going on the front line of struggle that they're engaged in. So just making sure that all of that flows and makes sense, and we can, potentially help with that if there's any confusion or we're unsure if something makes sense or not. And then keep promoting. So what does success look like? Having engaged with your community groups about the issue. This is, if nothing else, you've built relationships in your community and, shown support to folks who are, working on their specific issues, and then showing that, we have their back, and also that what we're doing connects with what they're doing. And so that's a valuable thing. If nothing else comes out of it, that's a valuable thing to come out of it. Having had a meeting with your representative. And sometimes, if nothing happens in this meeting, I'm going to, Matsui, for example, who is my rep, and I think some other people on this call, on this webinar, it took us a long time. There was many, many meetings, and we're based in her district, our national office. And, and she supposedly aligns with our values, but we had to work really hard. We had to go see her in DC and see her here. So you're planting a seed. So even if it doesn't result in signing on at that moment, it might be the first of, maybe 3 or 4 visits, but it did result in a success. And she is
she'll be back on again tomorrow in this Congress. And that took a couple more calls.
Yep. Yes. And I was part of that. And I just want to say, as somebody who, didn't have a lot of experience with going and talking to, my rep in person, it was very empowering. It was the visit that I was a part of that actually clinched it. And so it was really exciting to, feel that sense of agency and to feel like, wow, all of that work paid off. And just, we don't feel empowered that often. So this can be really rewarding. And have captured photos and videos and used social media appropriately to boost the national series of action. So again, the outcome, whatever the outcome is, you're part of a very big thing, and we're going to have lots of evidence that this thing happened all over the country. And so even if you just get a bunch of pictures and show that, that you were there and participated, it's powerful. And so, that those are all, so yes, it would be amazing if you get them to agree to sign on that day. That probably isn't going to happen, but it might. But all of these other things are super important. So just keeping that in mind and keeping that perspective is really good. So the support that we are going to offer is webinars, so a series of webinars. They're not required, but it's good to check in because everyone's kind of working on this pace and checking in and seeing where people are at and what kind of challenges they're having and that kind of thing is really useful. So hopefully you'll be able to join some of those. So Wednesday, April 10th, Thursday, April 25th, Wednesday, May 8th, Wednesday, May 22nd, and then we'll have a report back and debrief on Wednesday, June 5th. And these are all going to be at 5:30 Pacific and 8:30 Eastern, just like this one was. And then the materials and templates, we're still going to be loading some more stuff on there over the next day or two, but right now there is some stuff on there. So going to that web page, and then, other things that will support you with are, the petition lists and things like that. So, but we really want you to feel empowered to just kind of go for this on your own. And now we are at questions. So does anyone have any questions? So Jessica and I are paying attention to the chat so we can verbalize your questions if you ask them. And then I know Facebook Live is also.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook Live and you have questions, you can chat them in the comments and I can see them. And let's say, you guys, that let's prioritize questions that have to deal with the action first, and then if people have general questions and we have time, we'll get to those. We have scheduled until another half hour, but I think it would probably be better if we kept it to 15 minutes max. So let's prioritize the action questions, and then if there's other general stuff, we can get to that too. And there is also a place in the follow-up survey where folks can let us know if you have more questions. So if there's anything we miss that we don't get
to. Is the plan to hold these events right outside the rep's office or in a more public area?
I mean, I think we're looking to do them right outside, right? For the most part, if you identify that there's another place adjacent that like is a little bit better, that's, that would maybe be like a block walk or something like that, then that's cool. But we're really trying to like get their attention and make the picture of it be, we are at the rep's office and, and so the staff is like inside aware that this is happening outside, et cetera. Like there's a few people who also used the Q&A function, which I cannot click on if you guys can't see it, then I can close the screen share. But if one of you can click on that, it might be.
So a lot of these questions are questions that you can, we're going to send a follow-up email with a lot of resources in it and how to get a hold of us. So some of you are asking how to find out who's in your area and who you can coordinate with. We can definitely help you with that. But that's going to be the best way to do that is to follow up in the contact information that we provide in the follow-up, and then we can help you identify either supporters in your area who have, committed to wanting to volunteer in something like this. We can give you their direct contact information, and then we can also send an email blast out to everyone who signed our petition that's in your district, and ask folks to get in touch with you to coordinate. Let's see.
Can I just underscore? So what we have is a form that is just quick with like your contact information. And again, especially because we lost the people who registered for this probably, that's really important to fill out. And that includes a question of, what other questions do you have? So like if you're just you and you're like, I could do this, but I need at least a couple more people to help me, you can put that in there, and then we'll note that that's the follow-up that you need. We also want to know, who your congressperson is. If there's anybody on this call who has overlap with other people, we'll connect you with each other. And then we have our big database, like Shelley said. And then if there's other like logistical questions that are really unique to kind of your situation, it probably would be best for us to handle those one-on-one. So again, making sure you fill out that quick form after this is over by going to I think it's going to pop up when we're done, but if it doesn't, it's movetoamend.org/freethepeople is the page, and that form is linked there, and so you could go there right after. And if you would do that right away, because I know everyone gets busy and might intend to do it tomorrow morning or whatnot, but forget. So if you could just take 5 minutes to take care of that, and those of you on Facebook as well, it's movetoamend.org/freethepeople, and then we can kind of take everything from there really easily. Yeah.
Okay, and then Michael Adcock wanted to know how we should coordinate with the police in case we want to use amplification. I don't know if that's...
You want to answer that, Jessica? Or
sure. Sure. So I don't think that it's going to be necessary actually to coordinate with the police. This isn't the type of action where you're going to need a permit or anything like that, especially if it's in front of like a public building and you're on the sidewalk, you're not blocking any streets. You shouldn't have a problem with that. If you are looking to do something more escalated, we could talk with you kind of one-on-one about what that means and, the best practices for going about that. But if you're just doing a standard action outside your rep's office, that shouldn't even be a consideration. I don't think. Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's actually a couple people who are asking about here in Sacramento whether they should go to Doris Matsui or the Amibera action. I mean, I think we can figure that out offline with some of them, but I don't know Randy.
Yeah, and well, that might be something that comes up for others as well. So like people who live in a city, for example, you might have several reps that actually are right nearby you. So that would be one thing too that we can kind of, if you're already organized with Move to Amend, talking amongst yourselves and kind of figuring out, well, do you have capacity to do 2 different actions on that day, maybe at different times? If you do, then that would be great. That would be amazing. If not, and you're in an area with multiple reps, then maybe thinking about like who's most strategic, who's most likely to come on, and targeting them first. And prioritizing them, or somebody who took the pledge to amend. So here in Sacramento, we've got Amibera, who took the pledge to amend but hasn't yet become a co-sponsor, and then Doris Matsui, who's not on yet but will be on tomorrow. And so kind of figuring out, how many people do we have? Can we spread ourselves out and handle both, or are we going to do just one? In that case, I would prioritize Amibera and trying to get the person who isn't on yet, because the co-sponsor who is, we already have them, but maybe also stopping by their office that day and dropping off some thank yous and saying, we were over at Amibera's and we wanted to thank you. And as a neighboring rep, it would be great if you could talk to your colleague, something like that. So something manageable that allows you to cover as much as possible. But that's really up to you to kind of decide what makes the most sense given your capacity and who your reps are in your area.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just there's actually 2 questions that came up that seem a little bit of nexus. So somebody just said, South Carolina is so red. which, we know that drill, so we should speak to that. And then somebody was asking, is there some kind of suggestion list, brainstorming blog, or clearinghouse of ideas for actions related to pressuring reluctant representatives?
I could speak to that last question. Yeah, if you want to take this and kind of get more creative and think about other types of actions than just the basic one we've lined out, we can link to some of that on the webpage. There is a group called Beautiful Trouble that's been helping us a lot with thinking through these types of actions. There's some stuff on our website in the Take Action Toolkit that you can look through, some skits and scripts and things like that, but I highly recommend Beautiful Trouble. It's a book and an online toolkit, and they've got tons of actions and case studies from all over the globe if you want a place to just go and explore tons of different kinds of actions.
And maybe I could also add in too, in terms of like, red districts and stuff like that. So unfortunately, Move to Amend's amendment has been bipartisan in the past. It's only had, one Republican, but we have had a Republican. However, Walter Jones passed away right at the beginning of this year. And so he was our Republican. And obviously we want more than that. So just a couple things about them. One, it's not necessarily the case that they wouldn't come on board. It kind of depends on how much pressure you can build, right? And so that any Republicans that we have seen either at the state level or the federal level who have shown any sympathy, it has been because people have started to build a relationship with them and also to pressure them. So this maybe is, just the first, as Shelley said, I mean, Doris Matsui, she's kind of a more moderate Democrat, but she's a Democrat, and it still took several meetings for her to move along. And so that's very normal. So if you haven't talked to them yet about this, then think of this as just the beginning part, and do the basics, and hold the rally, bring in community groups to speak, think about having a cross section of your community, and then also we have some information that you can bring in when you're talking to conservatives, kind of talking points from a conservative angle. And also, the data showing that doesn't matter if we're talking about Republicans, they still support this issue. Their voters support this issue. We've had ballot initiatives pass in every conservative community where we've run them. We've had repeated polling showing that Republicans feel that corporations have too much power and that money in politics is too much. And so we can cater what you talk to them about to come from their perspective. And then also, the questions that they bring back at you, that's helpful information to kind of figure out, okay, how would we address this? Or again, okay, we've just identified that they're basically a passive opponent. That's when we would decide, all right, we can move them to neutral maybe with this, this, and this, or we can't move them to neutral. And so how are we going to target them when they're running to make this a point of vulnerability for them? So don't shy away from going into, a Republican's office to do this. You might be surprised. They might tell you, I can't, but, at least they won't say anything against it. And that is a win.
I just want to say that Morgan sent a message to us. She's on this webinar, and she said, don't ever give up because they have an R or D next to their name. 80% support across all citizens should speak to any representative. And that's true. I mean, this is a transpartisan issue. We've had this on the ballot in super conservative places. And every time it's been on a local ballot, except one time, it has passed, and usually by a landslide. We've got all these, resolutions passed on, bipartisan, bodies. So it's, this is one of those issues. And there is actually this whole conservative analysis that, and we have resources for how to talk to conservatives, but they have a totally different angle that they come at it. But it's, it's very rooted in like, who is a person and God and all, so there are ways to talk about this. And, the Revolutionary War, there's all these reasons why this, it makes sense to them, but not all of them have heard this argument. So, they're not, some of them are gettable.
maybe we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure we can get to the next steps piece. So do we have any more that we could take quickly? And also, anybody on Facebook have any questions for us? I don't see any so far, so that's okay. But if you do, get them in.
I don't see I don't see anything. I don't think we have not answered.
So again, if we've missed any, the form that you'd fill out allows for you to ask any additional questions as well. Or if there's, you know, if you have questions but it doesn't feel like the right forum to kind of ask of everybody to tune into the answer, then that is the best place to go next, and incentive to make sure to go fill out that form. So last call, any others? We didn't actually say who would do the slide, but I'll just go ahead. So next steps is to fill out that form, giving us feedback on this webinar and letting us know your intentions, and like kind of who you are and that you want to do this. So I would encourage you to fill that out, even if you're like, I don't know, like I can't do this unless I get a couple more people, or I'm not positive I can do this, or I need to check my schedule. Fill it out anyway, and then worst case scenario, we'll follow up with you and you can tell us actually it won't work, or this is what I need in order to make it work. Let's figure out together how to make it happen. You know, as we said, we are going to be doing our own actions too, as you know, all three of us are going to be participating in actions, and then several of the others on the team. So we're trying to make this as DIY as possible, but we definitely don't want to leave you hanging and won't. So let us know that you're even a little bit interested, and we'll work together from there. Put those follow-up webinars on your calendar. Those are listed on that webpage as well. So movetoamend.org/freethepeople. So if you didn't catch them, you can get them there, and we'll send you the link to register as we get closer. And then expect an email this week with updated details. We're putting the resources that we've said that we will be providing on our webpage, the movetoamend.org/freethepeople. So you can, you know, look there, but also we'll send you an email with a heads up that stuff has been added. Register for the Leadership Summit. Again, a plug for that. This is sort of May 28th is the first step. The next step is the important one of being in DC. And there's really, you know, it is important to go in your district, and that's what's accessible to most people. But what really gets their attention is if, you know, constituents travel to DC over an issue, that tells them that they really, really care. Plus, it's a whole conference. It's super fun. We do, you know, honestly, we do a really good job. Move to Amend people are awesome. You'll get to meet everybody. So if you haven't ever come to one, and then if you have and you're just slowly waiting, well, remember that, you know, Friday is the deadline for the early bird discount to end. So get your registrations in, and then let us know if you have questions on that feedback survey. So let me turn off the sharing, and now I can see everything. And maybe just last call if there are any pressing questions that we missed. Looks like people are saying yay and that they're ready to go. That's awesome. Check in Facebook one more time just to make sure there's nothing you guys need. And the recording of this webinar will be up on the Free the People page as well. So that's where you'll want to go check. And again, I hope that if this got done right, Zoom is kind of new to us, so we're trying out some of the different features. So if things work right, then you should be taken to the follow-up survey. If not, then please go to movetoamend.org/freethepeople and fill it out there. Jessica, Shelley, do you guys have anything to add before we say goodnight to everybody?
Thank you all so much for being here. I'm really excited to participate in the action and to be part of this big wave of things that we're all going to do together. And I really hope you all can come to the summit, because we're really excited about it. And this will just be like really energetic opportunity to talk about all this.
Yep, thanks. Awesome. Awesome to spend time with you all tonight, and feeling really energized from your energy. So this is going to be a good year for me to amend.
Yay, free the people.
All right, I do see a question of will the summit be live? We will be able to probably live stream a couple sessions like we did last time, but a lot of it's going to be really participatory and not so video friendly. So if you can't come, you will miss out on a lot of it. So the best thing to do is come. But those of you who can't, absolutely can't, we will try and make the sessions that would make sense to be live streamed again in our partnership with Free Speech TV. All right, everybody, good night. We'll see you again on April 10th. And if we do offer this webinar again next week, we're kind of deciding whether that makes sense. We'll send that out to the national list and you'd be welcome to join us again, although it will be exactly the same as this one. So good night, everybody. And thanks, Jessica and Shelley, for your good work. And
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you again soon.
Bye.